Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Welcome to the Hemp News segment of Cannabis Common Sense. It is the 10th of February, 2017, and we will be back with our live studio show on February 17th. The studio has been closed for remodeling, and with the weather, it's been closed many times, but if weather permitting, as long as the public schools don't close, Friday, February 17th, we'll be back in our studio at 2700 block of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Anyway, our first story tonight is from Augusta, Maine. Maine became the 8th state to eliminate criminal penalties specific to adult possession and personal use of cannabis back on February 1st. The new Maine law permits adults who are not participating in the state's existing medical marijuana program to possess up to 2.5 ounces of marijuana and or the harvest from 6 mature plants. Public use of marijuana is a civil infraction punishable by a fine of $100 now in the state of Maine. In response to voters' approval of Question 1, Maine lawmakers passed separate legislation last week, LD 88, also permitting adults to possess up to 5 grams of marijuana concentrates. However, other provisions in the measure delay the implementation of retail marijuana sales until at least February 1st, 2018. It also prohibits the possession of edible retail marijuana products until this date. Maine was the 8th state in the nation to allow adults over the age of 21 to possess and consume marijuana for recreational purposes. It joins 6 western states and neighboring Massachusetts in allowing recreational cannabis after voters narrowly passed a ballot measure in November. Adults are allowed to possess, as we said, 2.5 ounces and grow up to 18 plants at home. 6 of them can be mature. Maine voters approved legal marijuana by the smallest margin of any of the 4 states where it passed in 2016, just a few thousand votes out of nearly 800,000 cast was the margin. Opponents requested a recount, though that process did not alter the outcome. Even as the measure takes effect, the Maine legislature is fine-tuning the program. Last week, Maine Governor Paul LePage, a pretty controversial Republican, signed a bill that closed a loophole that would have permitted those under 21 from possessing marijuana. New taxes on marijuana products are expected to begin generating revenue for the cash-strapped state in short order. Maine's Office of Physical and Program Review estimated marijuana products would generate $2.8 million in fiscal 2017 and 2018, and more than $10 million in subsequent years. Out of Washington, D.C., members of the United States Senate Judiciary Committee voted 11-9 a week ago Wednesday in favor of appointing Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions to the position of U.S. Attorney General. All 11 members that were Republican of the committee voted to confirm Senator Sessions, while all 9 Democratic members voted against his nomination. During his tenure in Congress, Senator Sessions has been an ardent and vocal critic of changes in statewide marijuana policies. He previously stated, quote, "Good people don't smoke marijuana," end quote, and endorsed legislation to execute marijuana traffickers. During the testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee in January, Senator Sessions said that it's not the responsibility of the Attorney General to pick and choose which federal laws to enforce. He said, quote, "One obvious concern is the United States Congress has made the possession in every state and distribution an illegal act. If that's something that's no longer desired, Congress should pass a law to change the rule. It's not the Attorney General's job to decide what laws to enforce," end quote, Senator Sessions has said. On a range of issues, Senator Sessions represents a return to a bygone era of state repression against individual rights. For marijuana in particular, in a day and age of legal dispensaries, it's troubling to see a man who once called for the execution of marijuana distributors is now in line to be the nation's top law enforcement officer. It's imperative that Congress act swiftly to keep existing legislation in place, protecting these state licensed entities from federal interference. Senator Sessions' nomination now goes before the full Senate, where Republicans hold a 52-seat majority. One good thing that's happened last week is the Boulder, Colorado District Attorney Stan Garnett's been selected to join a group of prosecutors from across the country who will help advise Donald Trump and his administration on policies regarding marijuana. The National District of Attorneys Association created a policy group featuring 14 district attorneys who will issue advisements on possible law and policy changes regarding marijuana as more and more states legalize it. Garnett said he's the only active prosecutor from Colorado in the group, but said there are also district attorneys from California and Oregon, other states with recreational marijuana in this group. Garrett said, quote, "It's a reflection of the National District Attorneys Association, our NDAA's interest in having a fairly balanced committee which will be largely advising on what our policy positions should be in communication with the Trump Justice Department," end quote. But while Garnett said there are a wide variety of states in different stages of marijuana legalization represented in this group, he said for the most part, NDAA still is a very conservative group of prosecutors, which is why he felt it was important to add his voice. Garnett said, quote, "I always end up the more liberal position than anyone else, particularly on marijuana. I think one of the things that happens is that many people in states where there is no legalization have a complete misunderstanding of what states like Colorado have. If nothing else, I'm able to say, wait a minute, this is a huge business in Colorado. It's largely supported by the editorial boards. Polls show it was being very popular, and by and large, we've not seen an impact on crime rates." Garnett said, quote, "For someone from Missouri or South Carolina to tell Colorado how to handle an issue of its own choice, like legalization of marijuana, is not only bad policy, but it fails to respect the importance of local control and state rights," end quote. For instance, Garnett said that at the first meeting, some of the district attorneys wanted to send a letter to the governor of any state with recreational or medical marijuana telling them to shut those businesses down. Garnett said, quote, "I thought that was a particularly unrealistic and ill-advised idea, and I was not shy about saying that," end quote. The executive director of the Colorado District Attorney Council and another member of the group said it will be a feeling out process for the group, which was only formed about 10 days ago. He said, quote, "There's such a myriad of approaches depending on what stage of legalization you're in. To come up with some sort of nationwide discussion on what works and what doesn't work makes a lot of sense," end quote. Regardless of their stance on legalization, they said all prosecutors have some common goals in regard to marijuana, such as keeping it out of the hands of children, cracking down on impaired driving, and curbing the black market. Boulder District Attorney Garnett said the group has toyed with the idea of issuing a majority and minority opinion on different issues. If he is in fact confirmed as the next U.S. Attorney General, Jeff Sessions likely would be ultimately going over the policy recommendations. Garnett said, quote, "Assuming he gets confirmed, he would definitely be the recipient of whatever we come up with. At the moment, nobody really knows the approach the Trump Justice Department will take, so that will determine how long the group meets," end quote. Again, Sessions has been a vocal opponent of marijuana legalization. Trump has also said he plans to keep it illegal on a federal level. Garnett said he thinks that Trump trying to reverse states' decisions to legalize marijuana is possible, but would be tricky. Garnett said, quote, "Legalization's been largely successful everywhere it's been tried, so it would be a highly unpopular move and difficult to accomplish successfully. But I don't know what to expect on the Trump administration on this issue," end quote. Here in Oregon, out of our state capital, lawmakers should not amend the state's traffic safety laws or institute per se thresholds for cannabinoids, according to recommendations of a new report issued by the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, which has been tasked with reviewing the state's driving laws following the passage of legalization with Measure 91 in 2015. The authors concluded that intoxication due to alcohol, not marijuana, remains by far the greatest contributor to motor vehicle accidents and found, quote, "no evidence," end quote, of an epidemic of THC-related collisions after marijuana legalization. They further reported, quote, "Studies have been conducted tend to show an elevated risk of crashes while under the influence of THC, but generally a lower overall risk as compared to alcohol impairment," end quote. Specifically, the authors acknowledged that drivers with a blood alcohol level of 0.08 possess approximately a 400% increase in motor crash risk compared to sober drivers. By contrast, recent crash culpability studies of marijuana-positive drivers report an elevated risk of 30% or lower. The authors also rejected the idea of imposing per se limits that criminalize the act of operating a motor vehicle if the driver possesses detectable amounts of specific drugs or drug metabolites above a set threshold. Under these laws, drivers are guilty per se of violating the traffic safety laws, even absent of evidence demonstrably showing impairment. The authors acknowledge that evidence quantifying THC blood levels with psychomotor impairment is not available at this time. Rather than imposing such non-scientific standards, they recommend the creation of standardized field detection tools that are able to detect recent use and impairment separate from levels of THC that may be due to chronic but non-recent marijuana use. Recent reports by both the American Automobile Association and the U.S. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration also reject the use of per se thresholds as predictors of cannabis-induced driver impairment. Out of Utah, Utah's House Health and Human Services Committee unanimously passed Utah's House Bill 130, allowing research on medical marijuana without federal approval. Utah State Representative Brad Daw, a Republican and the bill's sponsor in the Utah House, said, quote, "This is the first step in what I think is the right policy direction for the state of Utah," end quote. Across the United States, we routinely take a pledge that ends in with liberty and justice for all. Yet that fundamental promise has been broken in 6 of the 8 states that have legalized recreational marijuana use, as tens of thousands of people remain in state prison for nonviolent marijuana crimes. The majority of America is now cannabis friendly. Nearly 60% of our nation's population resides in states with some form of legalized marijuana. 29 states, plus the Washington, D.C., ironically, have legalized medical marijuana, and 8 of those states have also legalized marijuana for recreational use: Alaska, California, Colorado, Nevada, Maine, Massachusetts, Oregon, Washington, and, again, ironically, Washington, D.C. Now it's the responsibility of these 8 state governments, concerned citizens, and leaders of the cannabis industry to also demand justice reform for those who've been the past victims of the war on marijuana, those that will not enjoy the privileges and freedoms that come with this new legislation. To date, only Oregon and California have taken the lead in addressing marijuana criminal justice reform. In 2015, more than 6,000 Californians were in state prison or jail for the nonviolent offense of growing or distributing marijuana. The day after Proposition 64 passed in California, these inmates were allowed to apply for early release or parole and have their records expunged. It's only reasonable that the other 6 recreational cannabis states pass similar legislation for those prisoners who remain incarcerated for acts that are now legal in their state. In addition, people who were previously convicted of marijuana offenses and have since been released from prison or jail should have their records expunged. There's a very real impact on those who've been arrested on marijuana crimes, even if they're no longer incarcerated. They've been saddled with a criminal conviction that can make it difficult or impossible to vote in some states, obtain a student loan, get a job, maintain a professional license, secure housing, or even adopt a child. It's cruelly ironic that there are now farms in America legally growing thousands and thousands of plants worth tens of millions of dollars, while someone who served their time for that same action is sitting at home with a felony conviction still on their record. And while it's legal in recreational states to possess and smoke marijuana, federal laws outlawing its use make it a firing offense for government workers who remain in place. There's another serious social impact of the government's war on marijuana. According to the ACLU, marijuana arrests now account for over half of all drug arrests in the United States, and the arrest data revealed one consistent trend: significant racial bias. The prison population in the United States is 2.4 million, and blacks and Hispanics make up 2/3 of that total, while blacks only consist of 12% of the general population and Hispanics around 17%. Despite roughly equal usage rates, black people are 4 times more likely than white people to be arrested for marijuana, and Hispanics more than 3 times. Going strictly by the numbers, it's clear that black and brown lives matter less when it comes to marijuana enforcement and incarceration. As part of this discussion, there's also a physical argument to free nonviolent marijuana prisoners. The financial sector of the cannabis industry, providing sales, software, and financial technology that enables producers to transact safely, securely, and in regulatory compliance. Marijuana is now a mainstream business in 8 states, and even Microsoft is creating software to help state governments regulate that. States spend more than $3.6 billion enforcing marijuana laws every year. In 2015, law enforcement agencies made 574,641 arrests for small quantities of marijuana intended for personal use, 13.6% more than the 505,000 arrests made for all violent crimes, including murder, rape, and serious assaults. The cost of housing prisoners in states that have legalized recreational marijuana are staggering, ranging from $30,000 to $71,000 per inmate per year. While these same state governments are salivating over the tax revenue from marijuana sales, Colorado alone collected $135 million in taxes in 2015. Lessening the burden on our police, courts, and prison systems will also save them millions of dollars. While humanitarianism is at the heart of this movement for criminal justice reform, money talks too. The fact is that medical cannabis legislation was passed because of a social movement that demanded conscience and compassion. Yes, there's concern about whether the Trump administration will uphold states' rights in regard to legalizing and decriminalizing marijuana, especially with the confirmation of Senator Jeff Sessions as Attorney General. While we hope the President will recognize that our Constitution empowered states to deal what they thought was their best interest of their citizens, we must recognize that right now, changing federal marijuana law may not be practical. That's a long-term campaign that we'll wage, but in the meantime, let's use our political capital and financial resources to make a more immediate impact. We must rely on the same moral compass that enabled medical cannabis to become law to push for fair-mindedness in states that have legalized recreational marijuana. When discussing criminal justice reform, it's critical that we remember we're talking about real people, not members of a cartel or organized crime. This is about a mother, father, son, or daughter, grandmother, or grandfather who went into the marijuana business at the wrong time. These 8 recreational marijuana states have now declared that it's the right time. With their battles for legalization over, it's time to release the nonviolent prisoners of war. That's the end of our Hemp News segment tonight. We'll be back live next week in our studio at the 2700 block of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. You're welcome to come in. It's a live show. It should be every Friday for some time after that. And we've got more of our show right after this.
A new cash crop is big business here in Colorado, and no, we're not talking about marijuana exactly. 7 News reporter Jacqueline Allen shows us why Colorado is getting the nickname the Silicon Valley of hemp.
Its nickname may be ditchweed, but this Fort Lupton processing plant,
industrial hemp,
is turning Colorado's newest cash crop,
see how fluffy it is,
into something valuable.
So right now, is there more demand for hemp than what you can grow?
Oh my God, yes. 100%.
Danny Billings started growing hemp in Colorado last year after voters made it legal, along with recreational marijuana. The hemp plant is cannabis without the psychoactive properties.
I would say it grows like a weed. Literally, you throw it in the ground and just watch it grow.
But hemp is still illegal under federal law, so processing facilities are hard to find, and most processing here is done by hand.
This hemp was grown in Sterling, Colorado.
That's where Pure Vision Technology in Fort Lupton is coming in. President and CEO Ed Lehrberger gives us a tour of his pilot plant.
Our tagline is pioneering the hemp revolution.
Here, they're using new technology to quickly turn hemp stalks into raw materials like this pulp to make paper, or this sugar to make biofuels, a sustainable alternative to oil.
So you process the entire plant?
The entire plant. Some of our clients specifically are trying to get away from oil-based products that they sell globally to bio-based products.
Pure Vision has been processing corn and wheat for years, but hemp farmers like Danny have driven demand to process this plant, saying it has thousands of sustainable uses.
Clothes, shoes, chairs, literally everything that we're in right now can be made from hemp, so just needs to get going.
And from the plant to the pulp to the paper, Colorado is getting going. The so-called Silicon Valley of hemp turning ditchweed into a hot commodity. In Fort Lupton, Jacqueline Allen, 7 News.
to Henry Ford in 1941 with Popular Mechanics magazine showing off his car made from hemp.
Well, come climb the mountain with me. Come see what we can see. Come climb the mountain with me, and then we will all be free. Some men are born to lead, some men have destiny. Some men plant the seed, and some men set it free.
We had 92,000 cars a day, thousands of people parking behind the FBI building, and they arrested us and they said, you cannot do this. I said, well, I'm not going to pay you a fine and go on probation. So I did 15 days in prison rather than give them a $5 fine.
Wow,
You know, we had
that's kind of like telling Jesus you can't practice on Sunday.
it was a fine line.
So come climb the mountain with me, come see what we can see. Come climb the mountain with me, and then we will all be free.
Jack here and Ed Adair.
Well, hi guys.
They must be on the hemp tour. Are you on the hemp tour?
One man said we must hear. One man's voice was clear. One man heard the call. His vision speaks for all.
The number one plant for paper, fiber, and fuel from the natural cycle had been outlawed. That somehow the synthetic cycle had won, when the number one thing in the natural cycle could outproduce it and completely clean up the atmosphere. So my partner, Captain Ed, who had become my partner in 1973 and doing the politics of this, said, we have to teach everybody in the world. So we went around and told everybody. But it was a slow process.
So come open your eyes with me, and come see what you can see. It's time for the world to know the emperor wears no clothes. Come open your eyes with me. It's time for you to see. It's time for the world to know the emperor wears no clothes. It's time for the world to know the emperor wears no clothes. The emperor wears no clothes. The emperor wears no clothes. The emperor wears no clothes.
Industrial use, I don't see there any harm, and there's a lot of good uses for it. People fight it because of the, from the blackballing of it through William Randall Person's paper industry. I guess that's where it first started, but I don't mind the industrial use. I mean, it makes rope, fine clothing, fine paper, whatever.
Anything you can make out of hydrocarbon, you can make out of a carbohydrate. There's no reason to be burning fossil fuels when we don't have to.
If you can grow hemp properly, it is a material that contributes to sustainable agriculture, because the tonnage of carbon removed from the air in the form of carbon dioxide is high relative to the amount of carbon removed from the air by other plants, like trees.
This is a modified 1983 Mercedes-Benz turbo diesel, and the only thing that we've done differently is put lots of wonderful stickers on the car and put hemp biodiesel fuel in the tank. That's it. No modifications.
Also, Mercedes-Benz right now has a Model 420 M Series, believe it or not, that's got hemp composite plastic dashboards and door paneling. And they're discovering that it biodegrades when it breaks upon impact. It doesn't break sharply, so it's less likely to injure a person.
And we've been on the road for 6 weeks now. Got 6,000 miles on the car. That's totally on hemp. And we've got another 6 weeks to go roughly before we end our tour in DC.
There's a lot of problems that have to be solved, and we can solve a number of them. Its fiber strength is up on the order of 5,000 psi. So you get a fiber strength that's equivalent to some of the toughest, strongest woods. When you process hemp fiber using a hydrogen peroxide process, you can control the pollution more effectively than using chlorine processing, which is used for paper. The hemp that comes out of this process can be made into oriented strand board. Oriented strand board is the largest growing sector of the materials industry for construction. Oriented strand board can be made with hemp fiber having a modulus of 6,000 psi, about twice the strength of ordinary particle board. This makes hemp fiber bonded with its own natural binders a suitable material for underlayment, sheathing, and roofing substrate in houses and housing construction.
When I'm watching the Super Bowl and I see that they're saying people like me are, in addition to like mowing the lawn and having some nachos, also murdered a family in Colombia, I take offense to that. Who else takes offense to that? I did not murder a family in Colombia, and it is the people that are propagating this that are responsible, and they're going to keep on. They're going to be. I can't even imagine how many families are going to die because of our drug war in Colombia.
War on drugs? Give me a break, man. Attention, drug war generals out there. We are fighting back, man. And unlike you drug war generals, we are non-violent. We are peaceful. You cannot and will not stop us because we are not criminals. We are Americans. We're going to make that mean something. And we're about to take our country back and put it in the hands of the people who founded this country. The hands of the people whose blood and sweat and tears and backs paved the way for us to be here today. The problem is that in our justice system, we've got too much emphasis on the system and not enough emphasis on the justice. And that ain't gonna make it, man. That's exactly why we're here today at Seattle Hemp Fest. That's why you came out, and we'll be vocal day after day after day, year after year after year until we've overcome and justice finally prevails.
You've got that, and you convert that into this. Projects where we're trying to take natural materials. So this happens to be hemp fiber, industrial hemp fiber, and we're trying to churn these sorts of materials into solid materials that you can build all sorts of things with. So the advantage of doing this is you can grow these materials locally, manufacture them locally, and they cost a fraction of the amount as their synthetic counterparts. And in addition, you can mix synthetics in with natural materials and make new composite materials that have the best of both worlds.
So normally people are used to looking at a car door like this. This is what most people see. But on the back side, you have this natural fiber, and this has been in use for 20 years. And to have this 90-degree angle here for that strength, not a problem with fiberglass, but with natural fibers, you have to have a very strong natural fiber, and hemp is certainly, one of the top ones.
There's lots of appetite for taking raw plant materials and tearing it all apart and making liquid fuels out of it, but that's always going to be a high volume, kind of a low margin product that's destined to be burned. We're talking about making materials that are high value added products for high value added end uses. The earth has finite amount of resources, and using these kinds of materials allows more people to live high standards of living without the same cost to the environment and the same cost of resources to have that quality of life.
But what I want to just put this out or think about real quickly is we want people to think about the realities of alternative energy, helping the land, helping the farmer, a green economy, alternative energy, all of the buzzwords that the political system keeps throwing at us but has no substance behind it. We want people to think and consider the identity and the realities of industrial hemp, as an alternative energy solution to the problems that plague this planet. Hemp will help the farmer, it will save the farmer, it will create an environment, a fresh air environment that is healthy for this planet. Industrial hemp. We're not talking about marijuana. This is about industrial hemp. This is about helping the farmer and all of the things that hemp can do. And if nothing else, remember, it makes fresh oxygen for a carbon monoxide filling sky, and it does it on an annual basis. It's a renewable energy, and it sustains us. It was the largest cultivated planet. It was the largest cultivated crop on this planet up until the 1880s. Then around the discovery of oil, because hemp could do everything that oil can do and more, and do it safely without pesticides, without attacking and destroying the land. They outlawed marijuana a long time ago, but it was the hemp that they were after, because the hemp could sustain an alternative economy. Thank you. So please think about it. Think about it. Think about it and do what makes sense. All right. Give us this day our daily yeses. Yes to life. Yes to living. Yes to caring. Yes to giving. Yes to creating. Yes to thinking. Yes to clarity. Yes to balance. Yes to being. Yes to seeing. Yes to yeses. Give us this day our daily yeses. Chaos, confusions. Confusions, chaos. Desperations, despairs. Despairs, desperations. Program belief. Belief programs. Manipulated minds. Minds manipulated. Reactions, behaviors. Behaviors, reactions. Fearful thinking. Thinking fearful. Inside. Outside. Altering thoughts. Thought altering. Forgetting medicine. Medicine forgetting. Clear thinking. Thinking clear. Coherent. Coherence. Coherency. Coherent. Prayers given. Given prayers. Peace and love. Love and peace. Created realities. Realities created. Whatever sees. Sees whatever. We do. Do we? Give us this day our daily yeses. Yes to yeses. Yes to seeing. Yes to being. Yes to balance. Yes to clarity. Yes to thinking. Yes to creating. Yes to giving. Yes to caring. Yes to living. Yes to life. Give us this day our daily yeses.
let's just say, I don't know what I organized, but I was a part of a lot of things that went on.
Yeah.
Right? And that's really kind of the reality of it. Just wandered around to different places where it was good to wander to. You know, so
you are now a recording artist, and you have a number of albums out there. I guess, was it Jackson Brown who first brought you into the studio? Or how did that come about?
Well, it came about, you know, I spent a lot of time as a political activist.
Right.
And then for me, as an individual, I came to understand that that identity didn't work for me. Right, because it limited my perception of reality, because I was participating in reality from the perception of a political activist, and no matter how righteous my activism, no matter how righteous my cause, I'm limiting my ability to see because I'm only seeing as a political activist. And that has its own limitations, because I think there are larger understandings that as human beings we need to be able to experience, maybe. All right. Yeah. So in that whole, as all that's going on through my head and consciousness, I started writing. And I started writing, and then yes, Jackson took me in. I was kind of like a fugitive, and Jackson took me in and into the world of music while I was writing. And then at some point I got the idea, well, I want to put I want to put my lines with music, but as spoken word. You know, so then I wandered off into that to see where it would go, and here I am.
I remember must have been more than 20 years ago I first came across a cassette of yours. It was This is in El Salvador.
But This is in El Salvador. Yes.
Right. It was really a powerful. Was that one of your first ones?
It was the fourth album.
Fourth album.
We made Tribal Voice, which was the poetry with the tribal music. And then 3 years passed, and then I met Jesse Ed Davis, and with Jesse Ed Davis I made Graffiti, aka Graffiti Man, which is now with the electric music. Right. And then we made Heart Jump Bouquet, and then we made But This is in El Salvador. I think in 1987 we recorded that.
Right.
We like that tune, Grass Fire, man.
Grass Fire, yeah.
My DNA needs THC.
My DNA
awesome
needs THC.
Tune,
well, it's reality.
Yeah,
this is
and
true.
it does.
Be real
it's
sometimes.
amazing how the science is backing that up more and more every day, and we often talk about it here, how, you know, just in, what was it, 93, they discovered that our bodies have this whole endogenous cannabinoid system where we have these artificial cannabinoids that kind of modulate the rest of the endocrine system, the body's hormones and everything.
Well, you know, I think
we do need THC.
Yeah, no,
in fact,
we do.
mother's milk has endogenous THC
well,
in it.
no, that's why my DNA needs THC.
Yeah.
There's a reason, right, that it gets said. But you know what I'm interested in? I mean, in a way, is like, because what you're saying about this. See, I think that, what is this, cannabis sense?
Yeah, cannabis common sense.
Well, see, what makes cannabis common sense to me is I think we really need to start putting some efforts into the legalization of industrial hemp. If we put as much effort and energy into the legalization of industrial hemp as we put into hemp that we can smoke, if we put an equal amount of energy into that, because that serves, it meets a larger objective of alternative energy, because, I mean, you know, I won't make the speech, but we make the fuels and the food and all this stuff, all right, and it's you know, and I've had this lingering curiosity in the back of my consciousness, as active as the cannabis movement is in its various levels and perceptions, right, that I don't quite get why more energy isn't put into that. You know, because it would save the farmers and all. I mean, there's so much that could be, and everybody's talking, and people are starting to sit back now. The political system's starting to talk about, well, in order to meet our oil needs, we'll do offshore drilling. You know, and people are, say, and I don't see it coming. No, in order to meet some of these energy needs, industrial hemp.
Yeah, we often talk about this study out of Notre Dame University in 1975. It's published in a magazine called The Midlands Naturalist, and it's feral hemp in southern Illinois. According to that study, an acre of hemp will make 4 tons of hemp seed, and 4 tons of hemp seed will make 300 gallons of biodiesel fuel or oil.
So to me, those of us who come from the hemp community, see, this should be the alternative form of energy that we're putting up. If we put as much effort into getting medicine for the earth as we put into getting it for ourselves, see, we have the energy to do it. It's just the focus and the consciousness. Because what I see as the imbalance, we're talking about the benefits of hemp or marijuana medicinally, all right, for us. But it also serves the same medicinal benefit for the earth. You know, and it does. But we're not putting an equal effort into what it does for the earth as we're putting into what it does for us. And because what I don't see it really happening anywhere to a large degree. But what we really need to have is we really need to have a stimulation of the energy consciousness.
Should have been a hemp
the energy.
Year, John. Our theme was industrial hemp, man. We
Yeah,
had
see,
a
and this should
serious
be-
emphasis going
See,
on,
and this should be-
on
yeah,
alternative
because-
energy.
The environmental crisis being what it is, I think there's an opening somewhere to inject it in as an alternative, part of the alternative, because they're talking about alternative energy.
Yeah,
all
I
the
think you're exactly
reptilians
right.
and the sheep and everybody's
I think
talking
that's
about
the
it,
key, really,
right?
is the alternative energy
and
thing. I
think
agree with you
somewhere
on
in
that.
While that's all going on, this whole idea, and maybe it comes out of our consciousness about saying, no, consider this is about alternative energy. Because they are talking about drilling offshore now, you know, and everybody's starting to accept it. People that wouldn't accept it 15 years ago, it's you know, because what's happened is the industrial ruling class, they're cutting off access to the drug, oil. And people are going through the withdrawal, and they're making them pay the higher price. So now they're willing to sell their children, so to speak, or sell the family jewels, so to speak, you know, right, and to get the next fix, the offshore drilling.
According to T. Boone Pickett's, the
this is
largest
going on.
transfer of wealth
But all
in
this is
human
going
history.
on now, but I think that, see, what makes sense makes sense. We're talking about cannabis. What makes sense makes sense, and I think that you see, I'm not the person that does, but that does it, but somewhere.
You can lead the way, John.
If it gets injected, if in our consciousness and we start thinking away that this should be put to that alternative energy debate thing that's going on, industrial hemp.
They don't want that, but
You
I
know,
think that's the key of it.
And it's being said for the sake of it, because you know there are a lot of people, especially farmers. Because the song about the farmers, there's a lot of farmers. There's a lot of people that would be supportive of it, but it's got to be.
If we could put the money for this
It's-
petroleum money that's going
but
overseas
it's
into
about
our
putting
farmers' pockets,
But putting in the
farmers are
energy.
gonna
See,
back
we need to put the energy into the idea, all right? Put the energy in, all right? And then that'll help to feed other energy. And see what's going
Energy
on
is the world's
they're putting
largest
more
industry.
energy against us than we're putting against them.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's going on. They're putting their energy is more coherent. What they're going to do against us, they're very coherent about what they're doing, all right, in order to keep the downtrodden downtrodden.
Yeah.
But it's
wanna
about energy,
imprison
laws
anyone
and
that thinks
voting
about
and all
marijuana.
that stuff. These are mechanisms, but in the end, it's about energy. So the only defense we're ever going to really have in the long run is what kind of energy do we create with the creative power of our intelligence? What kind of coherent energy do we protect ourselves with? You know, because. And anyway, so to me, you know, anyway, I think that it's in our best interest if we really put thought into the what we call industrial hemp, as a part of the alternative energy, right? Consciousness that's going on right now, right? And then it helps the medical marijuana use for the humans, and it also helps for that.
Yeah, they can heal the planet.
Because I think in a lot of ways we're having a hard time getting past, because the way we have to fight the struggles we have to fight to get it legalized for human consumption, all right? I just think an equal amount of energy needs to start going for, it's earth medicine. It protects the earth, you know? You don't have to insecticide it and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, that's right. It grows more
like a buffalo. It
and
just
faster.
grows,
It
you know.
produces more protein, fiber, and oil than any other plant on the planet. One of the things we say here on the show quite frequently is that the real reason that marijuana is illegal has nothing to do with drugs. It's not about drugs. It's really about money and the continued centralization of economic and political control. It's about the political powers that be that protect the petrochemical industry and the wood-based
paper industry and that whole corporate monolith that wants to, you know, centralize control to a tinier and smaller group of people. And we've got to
they don't
turn that
even have
around.
to centralize control. Things are working just great for them.
Yeah.
And they have been for a long time.
Thousands of
years. So they don't need to centralize or do any. Actually, all they're really
Well, they
all
prohibited
the
marijuana.
institutions are concerned about is keeping the status quo.
Yeah.
I don't think they're actively at this point. I think they've got everything where they want it, and it's working just fine. I saw a great bumper sticker the other day. It said, "Everything considered, the war on the environment is going extremely well."
No, they know what they're doing. But you know, this other thing about marijuana is not a drug. All right, and we jokingly refer to it. We do.
It's a sacrament.
Right. No, it's a plant.
It's an herb.
It's an herb. It's a plant. It's not a drug. The earth does not grow drugs.
Yeah.
This is basic reality. The earth does not grow drugs. All right? Man creates drugs out of things the earth grows. So marijuana is not a drug. All right? It's a plant. All right? And I think that that's an important distinction that we need to understand, because it's a part of our humor and a whole part of our consciousness. Dope, this is right, you know. And
it's kind of denigrating.
But in reality,
you know, it's self-denigrating. If you look at the Cheech and Chong kind of humor, not to complain about them, but it is self-denigrating.
But at some point, we need to really have that understanding also, because it helps us, you know, because we know the marijuana prohibition has got to do with the threat that it poses to the petrochemical society. It isn't, you know, because if you can make all of these things out of it, you don't need all this oil. If you can, you know, if you can make paper out of it, then you don't need to cut down the forest. If you can make wood for houses, then you don't need. See, it's a serious. See, that's what this is really all about.
To the whole industrial
It's really all
monolith.
about that. Whether you smoke a joint or I smoke a joint is irrelevant. It's about this, all right? And whether we get to smoke a joint or not becomes a way of keeping this down, a way of fighting this thing.
Right.
You know,
It's an artificial construct.
And I'm just saying, somewhere along the line, as we evolve this thing, if we throw in our energy of consciousness and alliance with what I call industrial hemp, looking out for the earth in a larger context, it will be beneficial all around for all of us.
Get high in the summertime, trees outlays to ease my mind. I like to puff live in the sunshine, pulling soft palms and flipping rhymes. I like to get high in the summertime, trees outlays to ease my mind. I like to puff live in the sunshine, pulling soft palms and flipping rhymes.
You know, there's been this rumor floating around, and I'm going to address it right now. I got to tell you people that I decided to quit smoking. And then I realized, hey, I'm not a quitter. Some people. First of all, I want to thank all the vendors. I want to thank the Seattle Hemp Fest for having me out here. I want to thank all these volunteers who work so hard for no money. A lot of volunteers around here. I want to thank the police for keeping the peace. I want to thank some people who don't get a lot of credit and really deserve it. I want to thank those people walking around here selling magic cookies, brownies. They don't get the credit they deserve. You guys are definitely the most energized pot smokers I've ever run across. I think it was appropriate to start here in Seattle because it's the home of the place where the young and the young of heart took to the streets and flashed a giant neon sign saying, "We're not putting up with this shit anymore. WTO, go home. Find an island." It's because there's an amazing propaganda machine in this country. Don't you think? I mean, it's a propaganda machine that makes us actually believe that we live in a democracy when we know we don't live in a democracy. I mean, it's a propaganda machine that talks about us living in a free country when we know we're not living in a free country. You're free to do whatever you want to do as long as it doesn't go against what the government wants you to do. So how are we going to turn that around? I say things like this: the Seattle Hemp Fest are the way to turn this thing around. Every one of you people who showed up here today, you're making a statement, and I'm damn proud of you. And you know what I have to say? Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. And I think it will change. I think it'll change. Thank you all for coming out here today. I really love my heart.
Say your name with one breath left. Summertime, trees are green, that's my mind. I like to come fly in the sunshine. Colors on the dawns and flipping rhymes. I like to get high in the summertime. Trees are blazing, ease my mind. I like to come fly in the sunshine. Colors on the dawns and flipping rhymes. You're with my hip hop fans from Seatown to Flatlands. Get ready to launch.
Give me an H. Give me an E. Give me an M. Give me a P. Your turn. Outdo him. Give me an A. Give me an E. Give me an M. Give me a P. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the house band of Seattle Hemp Fest, the incredible Herbivores.
Street. I can get on out of town, but this here town's my home. Ain't hurting nobody, so leave my ass alone. 'Cause it's a losing battle, now that the truth is out. Even the politicians have figured this thing out. You can go ahead and inhale prayers, might help you loosen your tie, and legalize the herb, and drop all the lies. 'Cause it's a losing battle. Wake up! Every struggle for freedom, they'll put us to the test. So it's time to exercise our rights and put on a hemp fest. And we'll educate the youth. Soon will rule the land. It's just a matter of time, and it's time to take a stand. 'Cause it's a losing battle, one that money can't win. Been going on for years, just keeps right on going. Like a Cold War with the commies, prohibition and the like. You can throw us all in prison, but you cannot win the fight. 'Cause it's a losing battle.
Good things for good people.
good look at him. He's been through it.
This is Vivian McPeak at Seattle Hemp Fest here at Myrtle Edwards Park. I'm with THC TV and Seattle Hemp Fest, and we just had Woody Harrelson speak, enjoying some munchies now and some refreshments. We've got the herbivores, our house band playing. We've got so many people out there, I don't know how to count them.
Hey, Mr. Politician, time to wake up.
I agree. So I want to thank you guys for watching. We're going to go out on another great song by our buddy John Cornette. Tune in next week. We'll have a tape show next week. Check out where I'll be at newwestsummit.com. And we want you to tune in and help us restore hemp.
Oh, deep water, black and cold like the night. I stand with arms wide open. I run a twisted mile. I'm a stranger in the arms of the Maker. I could not see